The number one problem that I see people face when trying to learn AI and automation is not having enough time. I see this so often within my AI community as well. The resources are there, the lessons are all there, and the step by step frameworks are there. But what's not there is the time to learn them all and implement them correctly. And even when you do, AI is evolving so fast that it's difficult to keep up and stay updated with everything that's new. Trust me, I do get it. Some of you have a full time job, but you want to add this to your skill set and become more valuable. Or maybe you even want to change careers, start a side hustle, or start your own AI agency selling this skill to other businesses. But either way, I want you to know that it's totally possible. And if you're new to the channel, my name is Simon, and I've built a top rated Upwork profile since starting in June last year for AI agents and automation. I've earned over $40,000 working only 2 days a week by building out an AI agency. And I've also started up one of the best AI automation communities with over 500 members, teaching them how to learn, master, and sell AI automation. But the thing is, I learned all of it and got my first wins while dedicating only 2 days to it and using the other 3 days a week to grow my business. And that's when I discovered NAN and went all in, which allowed me to build enough momentum to quit and do my own thing. And in this video, I'll share with you the 3 key lessons that allowed me to do that so that you can use them to learn AI automation, see some progress, and also stay consistent while doing your full-time job, which is mostly the hard part. So let's jump in and start with number 1. So the first major problem you're going to face when you're starting your journey is chasing shiny new objects and not focusing on real business problems. So I've got a step-by-step guide here of how you can go and find exact business problems, real business problems, that if you solve are going to help you get your first client. So the first step of that is just going to Upwork, where there's a lot of demand for this work, and actually searching for real jobs. So let's head to Upwork now. And once you've set up your freelancer profile, you'll be on a screen like this where we'll be able to find work. So all we're going to do is search for something generic like automation or NAN automation. And what you can do is scroll through, and it highlights in green all of the different jobs that are available right now. So we've got an AI automation specialist needed for workflow optimization. And what we can do is click into these jobs and it will give a pop-up window and we can see exactly what people are asking for, real paying clients are asking for, and use that to tailor our workflow plans and how we learn AI automation. Because if your plan is to actually sell this as a skill, you need to have projects in your portfolio that match real client needs and not just some gimmick flows you've seen on YouTube. So some of the things you're going to need to look out for are where people mention specific processes that are taking place or specific processes or pain points that they want to resolve. So this one is not very good for the example here because actually it's so generic. It says we are seeking an AI automation specialist to streamline and optimize our company's workflows. But actually they've not said anything about what the workflows are. They've not given a document for us to be able to start mapping out workflow as well. So we're going to scroll down and we've got a really good example here, auto post to Twitter. So let's click into this and have a read of the description. We'd like to automate posting of racing results through our Twitter account. We have an API providing us the results, and then we need to formulate the tweet to include the result and a few extra sentences. Then this should be posted out to Twitter. So this was posted 2 hours ago, so it's still a hot opportunity to jump on top of. But whilst you're still learning that automation skill, we can go on to step 2 and we can start mapping that simple problem into NAN directly. So what I'd do is take a real problem like this, I'd open up my NAN environment and I'd create a new workflow. And NAN is an AI automation workflow software that allows us to connect various pieces of software together to create workflows. I've got a complete 4-hour masterclass on how to go from zero to mastering business problems using this software, which I'll link above. But for now, we'll just assume you have some knowledge around NAN, and we're just going to rename this to Twitter auto posting. And then simply to get this job, I would just start mapping out what I think the flow would actually look like. So we can come back to the description and just read it again. Automate the posting of racing results through our Twitter account. We have an API providing us the results. We need to formulate a tweet to include the results and a few extra sentences. So actually with very little effort, I can map out that this is probably 3 key stages here. So I'm going to open up some sticky notes and we'll just add a manual trigger. And all I'm going to do is map out, okay, so we're going to get at the API data, that's for sure. They've said we are receiving API data. We're then going to create a tweet and we'll probably use an LLM for that. And then the third step, we copy that sticky note is going to be posting to Twitter/X. So this is a really good example of a simple workflow that we can just map out very, very quickly. And we can go back to that client to say, hey, I've actually mocked up what the process would look like inside NAN. I can do this in X amount of time for you, etc. So it's going to put you ahead of a lot of others applying for these Upwork posts. So let's start mapping out what the nodes would actually look like. So maybe to get the API data, which they're already sending to us, we just put in a HTTP request, and we don't know exactly what endpoints, etc. we're going to need for this HTTP request for now, but we'll just leave it in like this. We'll then add an LLM chain. We'll just add the OpenRouter chat model so we can change the way the tweet is written. And then we're literally going to have the Twitter node here where we create tweet. And all we're going to do is connect to their Twitter environment. And actually, you see within less than 5 minutes, I've already mocked up what this could look like for them. Obviously, we've not gone into the detail of understanding where the API data is from. But immediately I can go back to the client and say, hey, I've mocked up a process for you. How does this look? What are the kind of tweets that you like the examples of that we can build into our LLM chain prompt? And we would define the prompt in here. And we could start off something very simple just to show that the process is going to work for them. And all I'm going to do is open up my Claude prompt generator here. I'm going to copy in the description here and say, create a simple prompt that takes example tweets in the input and formulates similar prompts using the data. Above is the description of the process. And then we're going to run that. And that's going to output a prompt for us that we're just going to be able to take immediately. We're going to copy this down here. We're going to take it directly into the prompt. We're going to turn this into an expression and open it up. And you'll see without any effort at all, we've already mocked up an example. And by the way, all these resources are available in the school, including the prompt generator here. You are a racing results tweet generator specialized in creating engaging tweets that announce race outcomes. Your purpose is to transform racing result data from an API into compelling tweets that maintain a consistent style based on example tweets provided. So it knows it's going to take input tweets and actually create a consistent style for tweets for this company. It's even put in the character limit for Twitter here. And we've got some examples of data that we could go above and beyond and actually say, hey, I've mocked this up. These are the things that I'm imagining would be in your data set. Can you confirm that this is the kind of data you want to post in your tweet and that your API has access to? So we'd have the race result data, including race name and location, date and time of race, full finishing order, notable race incidents. So you can see it's mapped out all of that for us and takes in some example tweets and outputs a tweet that leads with the race outcome in an engaging way, follows the style of example tweets, includes relevant hashtags, and the output is going to be ready to post to Twitter. And all we're going to need to do is connect that to Twitter and take the input that we have from there, which will be JSON.text. And now all we need is the input data, but we've actually mapped out already a Twitter auto posting system. And that's taken me less than 10 minutes. Now, in this specific example, we can see that 15 to 20 people have applied for this job specifically, and they're already interviewing too. So we probably wouldn't have chosen this one. But if we had a way to get to those posts much quicker, then the real learning begins when we start getting those jobs and we can actually start mapping out what it would look on a real project. But the main point here is to actually start with real business problems. If you want to sell this to other businesses, don't start by following some YouTube tutorials that are about the latest and greatest tech. Start with real business problems that businesses are asking for on Upwork. And you can scroll down hundreds of these. You can see there's loads of them in a day. And we had a really simple example there, but the same method applies. You can start mapping out the flow here, go above and beyond and show the client that actually you've already started thinking about their problem, which sets you ahead of 99% of others. When I've hired from Upwork in the past, it's always the people that have done something extra that I will take most interest in and take to the next stage. So you've mapped a simple problem to NAN. The next tip is around using the 80-20 rule. So this is called the Pareto principle, which is focusing on the 20% that matter most, i.e. take up 80% of the actual content, is going to take you 80% of the way. So an example in NAN here is that actually we've got hundreds of workflow nodes and hundreds of apps in NAN. Do you need to learn them all when you're starting out? If you've got all the time in the world, you might go through and try out all these nodes. But actually, which are the most important nodes that you need to focus on that are used most often? And there's probably a handful of nodes which are really useful to learn. And after that, it's just nuance on those nodes. So we might, for example, for certain apps, need to know how to use it. So Google Drive is a good example where if we pull down here, Google Drive is so commonly used across industries and companies, you might also want to know how to use Outlook. Or maybe there's some software that you're familiar with outside of N8N, which would make sense for you to actually know. Maybe that's Notion, maybe that's Google Sheets, maybe that's Go High Level. It depends where you're learning. But the point is actually focusing just on the ones that are going to drive your competitive position forwards fastest is the way to do this. So I would recommend using or learning the edit fields node and how that allows us to map certain data. I'd recommend learning the if and switch nodes, which allows us to add conditions into all of our flows and take different paths based on certain actions, which is almost always required. I'd recommend learning about the time trigger, because a lot of businesses and clients that I've worked with that always want to activate a flow once daily, twice daily, every minute, every hour. I'd learn some more data transformation. So when we receive data in, like these race results, how do we filter out data? How do we split out data? So inside the data transformation, the most important ones I commonly use are split out and aggregate, which either take a set of data and separate that, or they pull lots of single results into one single result. So the split out and aggregate are definitely up there in terms of the ones I'd learn. AI is obviously becoming more prevalent, and more companies are requesting content being created using AI, data being filtered using AI, insights being pulled using AI. So I'd 100% recommend learning the difference between an AI agent that goes out, thinks, pulls information from tools, and the basic LLM chain, which is like interacting with ChatGPT or Claude, etc. So we've got the LLM chain and the AI agent, and you can see they've both got different inputs here. And then the final one that I'd focus on learning early in your journey is the HTTP request. So whenever there's not an inbuilt node for an app, say we're trying to interact with an app called pdf.co, there's no inbuilt node. If you learn how to use the HTTP request, you can connect to any app that doesn't already exist in the system, and you can connect to any API. And it's actually very simple to understand the basics if you follow the path to understanding those. And off the back of learning those and mapping out 2 or 3 customer problems, you're halfway there to having a portfolio and a list of problems you can solve, which then make up a portfolio that you can show to a client and prove that you are the right person to hire. So to summarize, step 1 would be focusing on business problems, not just problems in your everyday life, but problems that people are paying money for people to solve. And you don't need to get hired for these jobs to actually add those to your portfolio. Most business problems can be solved using the 80-20 rule and just learning a few nodes, which won't take you long at all, just a couple of hours of work. The second bit of advice that I'd give to you is following a structured roadmap. So we already talked about specific nodes that would be most important to learn. And actually, despite the fact N8N offers thousands of nodes, you don't need to learn them all. There's actually a handful of less than 10 that if you understand and master, you're able to be in the position where you can go out and learn this. But to do that, you still need a learning routine. So I would set a 1-hour daily learning routine. If you've got a full-time job or you've got other responsibilities, an hour a day is something that I've found in my experience is a really manageable amount of time that you can dedicate to a specific roadmap about learning what's important. Then there's focusing on practice and not tutorials. I was so guilty of doing this at the start of my learning journey. It's very easy to say my 1 hour a day is watching YouTube videos of other people build flows. But then I'm sure you've done it in the past where you've watched a video and then you try and repeat the process by yourself, and the learning experience is so different between those two things. So I'd emphasize that maybe you have 15 to 30 minutes focused on watching a tutorial or a step-by-step, but actually having that 30 minutes to 45 minutes of actual practice time, build work, where you're starting to map out a problem, exactly like we showed a minute ago, is so much more important for my learning in particular and actually following a structured, because I encounter errors and I'm able to troubleshoot those and work out why those errors were happening rather than just see a perfect flow as it goes through. For this, I'm quite biased because I have a school community where I teach people how to master and sell out AI automation, but we have a roadmap, and so do many other communities. I'm not advocating joining this one specifically, join the one that's right for you, but we have a roadmap that lays out all of the foundations in a week by week section that allows you to learn the most important things for implementing this within business, focuses on actually putting it into practice and going out and doing your own flows and getting feedback on those rather than just following step by steps. And then we help you build confidence with workflows and actually show you how you can shortcut methods, exactly like I did before, where I went to Claude to get a prompt and I immediately drew out this Twitter auto posting flow. We show you all of those methods and give you the tools so that you can then shortcut your journey and save a lot of time. But there are a lot of different places where you can have a single roadmap. The importance here is working out which roadmap fits your learning style and following that structured roadmap, particularly because there's so much overwhelm with the amount of resources that exist. And then finally, the find 3 projects method is just a simple way to get 3 portfolio projects on your Upwork profile. So if we go to my Upwork profile here and we scroll down, I've still got some of my oldest projects that I used to display to my very first clients that were personal projects that I followed this exact method for. So I've got an AI research for blog fact generation here, and I've got a scrape web page links and summarize pages using AI. At the time, I found a few jobs asking for this kind of content creation or web scraping. So I chose to build out these flows and use those as examples. So find 3 projects on Upwork, map them out exactly like we showed before, and then you've got a portfolio that you can share. The third thing that I would do if I was starting again today is to pick one channel to start selling to and not spread yourself too thin. Now, this sounds so obvious in hindsight, but when you start out, you'll look at all of the different channels and try to sell to all of them, or think about how you can get clients or learn automation through all of these channels. I'm sure some of you are familiar with Alex Hormozy and his $100 million lead book. If not, definitely check it out. If you're looking to acquire clients, we're going to go through one of the frameworks that he shares and show how important it is for you if your end goal is to actually get a client in this space. And we're going to show you how to choose the channel with the least barriers to get started. So if we open up the flow here, we've got all of the potential acquisition channels for clients here, broadly speaking, split into audience warmth, i.e. how much we know an audience on the left-hand side, with we don't at the bottom, cold, and we do at the top, warm. We've then got how many people are we communicating this to? So we've either got one-to-one or one-to-many. So on the top left, we've got warm outreach. We've got a network of people potentially in our existing network that we're trying to reach out to on a one-to-one basis. Now, the key cost for us here is going to be our time. We might have people in our network. We might not have people that are relevant to what we're selling. But actually, it's going to take a long time, and it's hard to scale this approach, especially if we're trying to get our first automation client. We then have in the top right, warm broadcast. So we could share content with our existing audience on our channels where we've got connections like LinkedIn and Twitter. And that allows us to get through to a lot of people, but they're not necessarily the right people. We then in the bottom left-hand corner have cold outreach. So this could be cold calling. It could be sending cold emails, or it could be Upwork, where we're actually communicating one-to-one with a person and we don't know them. But the benefit here is we can actually scale that automatically. But the downside is it's going to cost us a little bit to do. And then if we want to actually communicate to people we don't know on a wider scale, it's going to cost us a significant amount more. And we're going to probably pursue something like ads, Google ads, Meta ads, which is a great option once we understand what we're offering. But before we know what we're offering, we're going to waste a lot of money if we start creating content, and it's going to take a long time to learn from those mistakes and cost us a lot. If we head down to the next chart here, I've broken down how to acquire clients and what things need to be true in order to acquire a client. So on the left-hand side, we've got fundamental factors that need to be true to acquire a client. Do they have a problem you can solve? Do they actually recognize they have the problem? Are they actively seeking a solution for this problem? Great, they've got a problem, we know that, but do they actually have budget to authorize the purchase? And do they trust us enough to use our solution? So we've got the different methods here. And you can see for the different methods, warm outreach, warm broadcast, cold outreach, and cold broadcast that we just went through, there's varying levels of trust here. With a lot of these methods, we're reaching out to an audience, maybe one-to-one like warm outreach, or in the broadcast sense, we're reaching out one-to-many. And we don't necessarily know if they've got a problem we can solve. We don't know if they recognize they have the problem. Are they actively seeking a solution? Maybe not if we're reaching out to them. Do they have a budget? Maybe. We can actually target that in some of these methods. Like cold outreach, we can target specific people that we know have budget. But again, it's a bit undetermined. And do they trust us enough to use our solution? Probably not if they don't know us at first. But warm outreach, they probably do. But we've still got all of these other objections that we can face in the sales process. Whereas something like Upwork, 80% of those objections are already tackled for us. When somebody posts on Upwork a job, they know they've got a problem, they're actively seeking a solution, and they've put it up because they're the person that's been authorized to take some budget to solve this problem. So the only thing you need to do if you're starting on a channel like Upwork is prove to the person you're applying the job for, you are the person that they can trust with their solution. And all of the other objections are handled for us. So it's really important at this stage when you're setting out on your AI and automation journey that you pick the right channel to start. And I would 100% recommend Upwork. And once you've chosen the channel with least barriers or a channel that's suitable for you, maybe you've got a really big following and actually warm broadcast would be a better and cheaper first method for you. You then need to create your offering. So everything you've done up to this point with following a structured roadmap, building out practical workflow solutions, and actually focusing on business problems is helping you to create your offering. You then just need some tailored guidance on how to position yourself to be the go-to person for that solution when you start applying to these things. And that's something that a community can help with. Communities in this space help you tackle some of the problems that we've covered today. They help you find other people on the same journey as you. They provide you support to get unstuck faster. And they help you learn all of these skills through a clear roadmap that focuses on practice. So in my community that's linked down in the description, we take you from absolute zero to being able to master AI automation through a clear roadmap of practice. But we take it one level further, and we're creating an agency operating system which will allow you to get your first client really quickly by just taking all the shortcuts that I wish I knew when I'd started. But also it teaches you not only how to get clients, how to keep them happy, and then how to scale to multiple clients, because getting one client is one thing, but actually keeping them all happy and scaling that is another thing. And that is how I'd go back and learn AI automation if I was working full time again, because all it takes is an hour a day and putting that effort into the right place. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the content, please give it a like and subscribe below, and check out the community link in the description.